There are moments that do not announce themselves. They do not knock. They do not give you time to prepare your face, to steady your breathing, to decide what kind of person you want to be when the world comes apart. One second you are sitting on a park bench, watching your children push each other on the swings, and the next second your children are gone. Running, screaming, wrapping their small arms around the legs of a woman you have not seen in 7 years. That is what happened to David Coleman on a Tuesday afternoon in Houston. He had taken his twins, Jaden and Maya, to the same park they had visited 100 times before. It was a normal day, the kind of day you forget by Wednesday. Then Jaden stopped swinging. He grabbed his sister's arm. He pointed at a woman walking past with a bag of groceries. And before David could ask what he was pointing at, both children were off the swings and across the grass, their voices rising above the sound of other families laughing, other children playing. "Daddy, we found Mummy. Daddy, we found Mummy." And before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. David did not move at first. His body would not obey him. He heard the words, but his brain refused to process them. Mummy. The twins had never said that word. Not once. He had told them their mother was sick and had to go away. He had never shown them photographs. He had never spoken her name at the dinner table. He had built a wall between his children and the memory of Rachel, and he had believed that wall was high enough and strong enough to last forever. But children see what adults try to hide. They find the photographs you thought you burned. They remember the tone of your voice when you say a name you pretend you have forgotten. And they keep secrets better than you know. The woman in the beige coat dropped her groceries. Oranges rolled across the grass. She fell to her knees as if something had struck her from behind. And then she opened her arms. David watched his twins crash into that woman's chest. He watched her cry. He watched his son hold her neck and his daughter press her face into her shoulder. And he felt something he had not felt in 7 years. He felt the ground shift beneath his feet. Because the woman crying on the grass was Rachel. The woman he had told himself had abandoned their children. The woman he had spent years learning to hate because hating her was easier than missing her. She was here. She was holding his children. And she was not supposed to be here. He stood up slowly. His legs were unsteady. He walked toward her across the grass. And with each step the story he had been telling himself for 7 years began to crack. His mother Patricia had told him Rachel left because she never wanted to be a mother. His childhood friend Vanessa had told him Rachel was unstable, selfish, incapable of loving anyone but herself. David had believed them because he had no reason not to believe them. They were the two women he trusted most in the world. His mother had raised him alone after his father walked out when David was 9 years old. She had sacrificed everything for him. She had worked double shifts and gone without sleep and made sure David had food and clothes and a future. When she told him that Rachel was not good enough for him, he listened. When Vanessa, who had been his neighbor since childhood, who had helped him with homework and sat with him when his father left and told him he deserved better, when Vanessa agreed with his mother, David believed them both. He never asked for proof. He never questioned their motives. He just believed. And that belief had cost him 7 years with the mother of his children. Now Rachel was on her knees in the grass, and David sat down across from her because standing was too hard. He looked at her face. She was older. There were lines around her eyes that had not been there before. Her hair had streaks of gray, but her eyes were the same. Kind, tired, and full of a sadness that matched his own. He wanted to say something. He wanted to ask her why she left, why she never called, why she let him raise their twins alone. But he could not form the words, because something in his chest was telling him that everything he believed was wrong. He looked at Jaden and Maya. They were still holding Rachel. They were not letting go. And in that moment, David Coleman understood that he had been living inside a lie for 7 years. He just did not know yet who had built that lie or why. To understand how 4 people ended up on the grass of a Houston park on a Tuesday afternoon, you have to go back. Way back. Back to a grocery store cereal aisle where a tall man with a quiet voice reached for a box on the top shelf and handed it to a woman with tired eyes and a laugh that made people turn their heads. David Coleman was 28 years old when he met Rachel Pierce. He was working as a project coordinator for a construction company. He lived alone in a small apartment in the Heights. He was not looking for love. He had dated on and off since college, but no one had ever made him feel the way he felt when Rachel smiled at him in that cereal aisle. She was 26. She was in her final year of nursing school. She worked the night shift at a diner to pay her tuition. She had calluses on her hands from carrying trays and dark circles under her eyes from studying. But when she laughed, the tiredness disappeared, and David forgot his own name. He asked for her number. She gave it to him. He called her the next day. They went for coffee, then dinner, then a walk along Buffalo Bayou. Within a month, they were seeing each other every weekend. Within 3 months, David had told her things he had never told anyone. About his father leaving, about the long years of watching his mother struggle, about the fear he carried that he would also leave someday, that abandonment was in his blood. Rachel listened to all of it. She did not offer advice. She did not try to fix him. She just held his hand and said, "You are not your father." Those 5 words landed inside David like stones dropping into deep water. He felt them echo. He felt them settle. And he started to believe that maybe, for the first time in his life, he was safe. He introduced Rachel to his mother Patricia 6 months into the relationship. He was nervous. Patricia was not easy to please. She had disapproved of every woman David had ever brought home. But Rachel was different, he told himself. Rachel was kind. Rachel was smart. Rachel would be a nurse, a respectable profession. Patricia would see what David saw. She would open her arms and welcome Rachel into the family. That is not what happened. Patricia made dinner. She asked Rachel questions that seemed polite but landed like accusations. Where did you grow up? Who are your people? What does your father do? Rachel answered honestly. She grew up in a small town outside Dallas. Her father was a truck driver. Her mother worked at a laundromat. They did not have much money, but they loved each other and they raised 3 daughters who knew how to work. Patricia nodded. She did not smile. She looked at Rachel the way you look at a piece of furniture you are considering buying, trying to find the flaws before you make an offer. Rachel felt the weight of that gaze. She felt herself being measured and found wanting. But she said nothing because she loved David and she wanted his mother to like her. That was her first mistake, wanting to be liked by someone who had already decided not to like you. David drove Rachel home that night. She was quiet in the car. He asked her what was wrong. She said she did not think his mother liked her. David laughed. He said his mother was like that with everyone. He said it would get better with time. He said not to worry. Rachel wanted to believe him. So she did. She pushed the feeling down and told herself she was being too sensitive. She had never had a mother-in-law before. She did not know that some mothers-in-law do not want daughters-in-law. They want rivals. And Patricia Coleman wanted a rival. The truth about Patricia was this. She had built her entire identity around being David's mother. She had no career she cared about, no marriage, no friends who were not also her co-workers. Her life had one center, and that center was her son. When David was a child, that was natural. When David became an adult, it became something else. Something that looked like love but felt like ownership. Patricia did not want David to find a wife. She wanted David to remain her son, forever, with no other woman taking the place she had occupied for 3 decades. Every woman David brought home was a threat. But Rachel was more dangerous than the others because Rachel was the first woman David truly loved. Patricia could feel it. And Patricia decided, early on, that she would destroy whatever was growing between her son and this nursing student from nowhere. She did not do it all at once. She was patient. She was careful. She dropped small comments like seeds. She seems nice, but is she really your type? I worry you are moving too fast. Have you noticed how she looks at other men? Each comment was delivered with a tone of concern. Each comment was wrapped in the language of love. David did not recognize what was happening because when your mother has been your only constant for your entire life, you do not have the tools to see her as anything other than a protector. Patricia was not protecting him. She was pruning. She was cutting away anything that threatened her control. Then there was Vanessa. Vanessa Shaw had lived 2 doors down from David since they were both in elementary school. Their mothers were friendly. Vanessa was an only child, quiet, observant. She had loved David since she was 12 years old. She had never said it out loud because she was afraid of being rejected. But her love was patient. It was steady. It was the kind of love that waits. She watched David date other girls in high school and told herself he was just figuring things out. She watched him date other women in college and told herself he was not ready to settle down. When David met Rachel, Vanessa felt something break inside her. Not a loud break. A quiet one. A crack that she thought no one could see. She told herself that Rachel was temporary. That David would wake up eventually and see that Vanessa had been there all along. But as the months passed and David proposed to Rachel, Vanessa realized that temporary was becoming permanent, and the quiet crack inside her became a cold, determined plan. She befriended Rachel with a smile that did not reach her eyes. She offered to help with wedding planning. She listened to Rachel's frustrations about Patricia. She collected every piece of information she could weaponize. And then she went to Patricia. She told Patricia that she loved David. She told Patricia that she had always loved David. And she told Patricia that she would do whatever it took to make sure Rachel did not become David's wife. Patricia looked at Vanessa across the kitchen table. She saw a daughter-in-law she could control, a woman who would never challenge her authority, a woman who would let Patricia remain the most important person in David's life. Patricia smiled. She reached across the table and took Vanessa's hand. And she said, "We are going to fix this. Together." The wedding happened anyway. David and Rachel married in a small but dignified ceremony at a rented hall on the west side of Houston. Rachel wore a simple white dress that David had bought for her. Not expensive, but exactly what she wanted. David wore a new charcoal suit he had picked out himself. They had invited only close friends and a few family members. Patricia attended, but did not smile in a single photograph. Vanessa stood in the back row and watched the ceremony with her arms crossed. Rachel did not notice. She was too happy. She was too in love. She did not see the two women in the shadows, already building the machinery of her destruction. Rachel got pregnant 3 months after the wedding. She was overjoyed. David was terrified and thrilled in equal measure. They told Patricia together, thinking the news of a grandchild might soften her. It did not. Patricia said, "I hope you are ready to be a mother." The words were not a question. They were a test. Rachel said she was ready. Patricia said, "We will see." That was all. The pregnancy was hard. Rachel had morning sickness that lasted all day. She lost weight instead of gaining it. She was exhausted in a way that sleep could not fix. David worked long hours, and when he came home, he found Rachel on the couch, too tired to cook, too tired to talk. He tried to help. He made dinner. He cleaned the apartment. But he was tired too, and scared, and young. He did not know how to carry the weight of what was coming. Patricia visited often during the pregnancy. She brought food. She helped clean. She seemed, for the first time, almost kind. Rachel was grateful. She let her guard down. She told Patricia about her fears, her insecurities, her worry that she would not be a good mother. Patricia listened. Patricia nodded. Patricia took mental notes. Everything Rachel said would later be used against her. The twins were born on a March morning. Jaden came first. Maya followed 17 minutes later. Rachel held them both and cried. David held them and cried harder. It was the best day of their lives. It was also the beginning of the end. The first 6 months were a blur of diapers and feedings and sleepless nights. Rachel breastfed both babies, which meant she was feeding someone every 2 hours around the clock. She stopped sleeping more than 90 minutes at a time. She stopped showering regularly. She stopped returning calls from friends. She was drowning in the way new mothers drown, slowly, quietly, with no one noticing until they are already underwater. David tried to help. He took night shifts with bottles of formula. He changed diapers. He rocked crying babies. But he also had to work. He could not take more than 2 weeks of paternity leave. So Rachel was alone in the apartment with 2 infants for 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. She was lonely. She was exhausted. And she had no one to talk to except Patricia and Vanessa. Patricia came over 3 times a week. She brought meals. She held the babies. And she watched Rachel. She watched the dark circles under Rachel's eyes. She watched the way Rachel sometimes stared at the wall while the babies cried. She watched Rachel forget to eat lunch because she was too tired to make a sandwich. Patricia did not offer real help. She offered judgment disguised as concern. "You look terrible. Are you getting any sleep? I worry about you. I worry about the babies." Rachel heard these words and felt herself shrinking. She thought Patricia was right. She thought she was failing. She did not know that Patricia was documenting everything, building a case, preparing for the moment when she would convince David that Rachel was unfit. Vanessa came over too. She brought coffee. She asked how Rachel was feeling. She listened with a sympathetic face while Rachel confessed her exhaustion, her fear, her secret thought that maybe she was not cut out to be a mother. Rachel would never have said those things to someone she did not trust. But Vanessa seemed like a friend. Vanessa seemed safe. Vanessa was recording every word in her memory, planning to share it all with Patricia planning to use Rachel's own vulnerability as a weapon against her. The fake text messages started when the twins were 5 months old. Patricia created a second phone number, one that David did not recognize. She sent messages to David that appeared to be from an unknown woman. The messages claimed that Rachel was seeing someone else. They claimed that Rachel had said she never wanted the babies. They claimed that Rachel was only staying with David for his money. David did not believe the first message. He did not believe the second. But Patricia sent 9 messages over 3 weeks. She varied the tone. She varied the details. She made the messages feel real. And David, exhausted from work, exhausted from parenting, exhausted from trying to keep his marriage together, began to doubt. He confronted Rachel. Rachel denied everything. She showed him her phone. There were no messages to other men. There were no secret calls. But Patricia had already deleted anything that could prove Rachel innocent. She had remote access to Rachel's phone through an app she had installed when Rachel left her phone unattended. Rachel did not know this. She could not explain why her call logs were empty, why her saved messages had vanished. She looked guilty even though she was innocent. And David, who wanted so badly to trust her, felt the ground shift beneath his feet. The last night Rachel spent in that apartment was a Thursday. She and David had fought again about the messages. Rachel had cried. David had slept on the couch. In the morning, Rachel packed a bag. She told David she needed a few days to clear her head. She said she was going to stay with a friend. She said she would come back on Sunday and they would figure things out together. She kissed Jaden and Maya. She looked at David and said, "I love you. I have never cheated on you. I have never wanted to leave. Please believe me." David did not answer. He stood in the doorway and watched her walk to her car. The taillights disappeared around the corner. He closed the door. He went back inside to check on the twins. And he did not know that his mother was parked around the block, waiting for Rachel to leave. Patricia called David that same morning. She told him she was coming over. She arrived with Vanessa. They sat David down at the kitchen table. Patricia said, "Son, I have to tell you something. Rachel called me last week. She asked for money. $50,000. She said she would leave quietly if I paid her. I did not want to tell you because I knew it would break your heart. But you deserve to know the truth." David stared at his mother. He looked at Vanessa. Vanessa nodded. "I was there," Vanessa said. "I heard the call. Rachel thought she was talking to Patricia alone, but I was in the room. She said she never wanted the babies. She said she was only staying for the money." David felt the room tilt. He wanted to deny it. He wanted to call Rachel and ask her. But Rachel was gone. Rachel had packed a bag and left. That looked like guilt. That looked like someone running away. What David did not know was that Rachel had not run away. She had driven to her friend Tanya's apartment. She had cried on Tanya's couch. She had said, "I just need 2 days to breathe. Then I am going back to fight for my family." She called David that night. No answer. She called again the next morning. Straight to voicemail. She called Patricia, hoping Patricia would help. Patricia answered. Rachel said, "I need to talk to David. He is not answering his phone." Patricia said, "He does not want to talk to you. You have hurt him enough. Please do not call here again." Then Patricia hung up. Every call was blocked. Every text went unanswered. She went back to the apartment. Patricia answered the door. Patricia said, "David has filed for custody. He has a restraining order against you. If you do not leave now, I will call the police." Rachel looked past Patricia into the apartment. She saw Vanessa holding Maya. She saw David sitting on the couch with his back turned. She called his name. He did not turn around. She called it again. He put his head in his hands. And Rachel understood. Not because anyone had told her the truth, but because the silence told her everything she needed to know. David had chosen his mother. David had chosen Vanessa. David had chosen to believe the lies instead of believing his wife. She walked away. She drove to the bus station. She bought a ticket to a small town 2 states away where she had been offered a nursing job. She sat on the bus with her forehead pressed against the cold window and watched Houston disappear. She did not know that the restraining order was fake. She did not know that David had never filed any paperwork. She did not know that Patricia had forged his signature on a document that gave her temporary guardianship of the twins. Rachel believed she had lost her children forever. And because she believed that, she stopped fighting. She stopped calling. She stopped hoping. The hope was the hardest part to lose. But she lost it anyway, somewhere between the bus station and the state line. David, meanwhile, believed he had done the right thing. He believed Rachel had abandoned their children. He raised Jaden and Maya with the help of Patricia and Vanessa. He told the twins their mother was sick and had to go away. He never showed them photographs because he had burned them all in a fit of rage during the first year. But one photograph survived. It was tucked inside a book Rachel had left behind. Jaden found it when he was 4 years old. He showed it to Maya. They hid it under Maya's mattress. And every night, they looked at the woman with the kind eyes and whispered, "One day we will find you." They kept that promise on a Tuesday afternoon in a park in Houston. The sun was warm. Families were scattered across the grass. David was sitting on a bench, scrolling through his phone, when he heard his children scream. He looked up. Jaden and Maya were already 20 yards away, running as fast as their legs could carry them. A woman in a beige coat had stopped walking. Groceries were falling from her hands. Oranges were rolling everywhere. The woman dropped to her knees. David stood up. He walked. Not fast. He was afraid. His heart was pounding so hard, he could feel it in his throat. When he got closer, he saw the woman's face. It was Rachel. Older. Gray streaking her hair. Deep lines around her eyes. But unmistakably Rachel. The twins were wrapped around her like they had been waiting their whole lives for this moment. David did not know what to say. He stood there for what felt like minutes. Rachel looked up at him. Neither of them spoke. The twins were crying. Rachel was crying. David's own eyes were wet, though he did not remember starting. He sat down on the grass across from her. Not close. He kept some distance. He watched his children hold their mother, and he felt something he had not felt in 7 years. His heart was cracking open. He wanted to know why she left. He wanted to know why she never called. He wanted to know if she had ever loved him at all. But he could not ask those questions with the twins right there. So he waited. Eventually, the twins calmed down. Maya was still holding Rachel's hand. Jaden had his head on Rachel's shoulder. Rachel took a slow breath. Then she reached into her pocket. She pulled out an old phone. The screen was shattered. The plastic case was peeling. She looked at David and said, "I have something you need to hear. Not tonight. Not here with the children. But soon." David nodded. He did not know what she meant. He did not ask. He helped her stand up. He picked up the groceries. They walked out of the park together, the 4 of them, with the twins holding Rachel's hands on either side. David drove Rachel to her apartment. She lived 20 minutes away, in a small one-bedroom place. Everything in it was beige and temporary. She had not put down roots. She had been waiting, he realized. Waiting for something she was not sure would ever come. After the twins fell asleep on her couch, Rachel sat across from David at her kitchen table. She placed the old phone between them. She said, "For 7 years, I have listened to this voicemail almost every night. It is the only reason I did not lose my mind." She pressed play. The speaker crackled. Then a woman's voice. Vanessa's voice. Laughing. He actually believes she abandoned them. "We won." Then Patricia's voice in the background. "She never deserved him." "You do." The recording ended. David stared at the phone. He played it again. Then a third time. His hands were shaking. He looked at Rachel. Tears were running down her face. She said, "I did not leave because I wanted to. I was pushed out. And then I was erased." David could not speak. He just sat there, holding the phone, feeling 7 years of lies collapse around him. David put the phone down. He reached across the table. He did not take her hand. He was afraid to touch her. He just let his hand rest near hers. He said, "Rachel, I am so sorry." His voice cracked. He looked down at the table. Then he looked back at her. "I believed them. I believed my mother. I believed Vanessa. I never called you. I never asked for your side. I never gave you a chance to explain. I just accepted what they told me. And I let you go. I let our children grow up without you. There is no excuse for that. I was weak. I was scared. And I was wrong. I am so sorry." Rachel wiped her face with the back of her hand. She did not say, "I forgive you." She could not say that yet. But she nodded. She said, "I know." That was all. But it was enough for that moment. David sat there for a long time, not speaking, just letting the weight of his apology hang in the air between them. He knew he would have to earn her trust back. He knew it might take years. He knew he might never fully earn it. But he had started. And starting was the hardest part. He drove to Beaumont the next morning. He walked into his mother's house without knocking. Patricia was in the living room, drinking coffee. She looked up and smiled. Then she saw his face. The smile disappeared. She knew. David sat down across from her. He placed his phone on the coffee table. He played the voicemail. Patricia listened to her own voice. She listened to Vanessa laughing. When the recording ended, she stared at the floor. Her hands were wrapped around her coffee mug. She did not move for a long time. Then she said, very quietly, "I did what I had to do to protect you." David let out a hollow laugh, shaking his head. "Protect me? From what?" Her eyes hardened. "From her. She wasn't right for you. She was never good enough." His expression darkened instantly. "That wasn't your decision to make. I'm your mother. You're a liar." The words didn't just land. They echoed, sharp and unforgiving, slicing through the space between them. Patricia flinched, as if struck. No one had ever called her that before. For 7 years, she had wrapped herself in the comfort of her own story, convincing herself it had all been done out of love. But hearing the truth, raw and unfiltered, from her son's lips shattered that illusion in an instant. Her eyes filled with tears, not from guilt, from being exposed. David rose slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You stole her from me," he said, his voice low but shaking with anger. "You stole my children's mother. You stole 7 years of my life, the only woman I've ever loved." His eyes locked onto hers, cold and unyielding. "And you did it because you couldn't stand not being the most important person in my life." The words hit harder than any slap. Patricia broke down, tears spilling as she reached for his hand, desperate, trembling. He pulled away instantly. No hesitation, no second thought. Then he turned and walked out. And from that moment on, he never spoke to her again. The confrontation with Vanessa was harder. David went to her apartment that evening. She opened the door wearing a sweater and jeans. Her face was pale. She had already heard what happened in the park. She let him in without a word. They sat in her living room. Photographs of David covered her walls. High school, college, birthdays, holidays. He had never noticed before how many there were. He played the voicemail. Vanessa buried her face in her hands. She said, "I have loved you since I was 12 years old. I watched you marry her. I watched you have children with her. And I could not stand it." David looked at her. He did not feel anger anymore. He felt something colder. He said, "You were my friend. You were like a sister to me. I never loved you that way. I never would have. And instead of accepting that, you destroyed my family." Vanessa buried her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook. David stood up. He walked to the door. He turned back and said, "Do not contact me again. Do not contact my children. Do not contact Rachel. If I see you near any of us, I will call the police." He walked out. He closed the door behind him. He heard her crying through the door as he walked to his car. He did not look back. Rachel did not move back into David's house. Too much had been broken. Too many years had passed. She found her own apartment close enough to see the twins every day. David and Rachel did not get back together. They could not. The wounds were too deep. But they learned to sit next to each other at school plays and birthday parties. They learned to be civil, then friendly, then something that looked almost like peace. Jaden and Maya grew up knowing the truth. Their grandmother had lied. Vanessa had schemed. Their father had been deceived. They chose to forgive him because they saw how hard he worked every day to make up for the years he lost. They did not forgive Patricia. They may never. Rachel told them that was okay. "Forgiveness," she said, "is not something you owe anyone." The last image of this story is a photograph. David, Rachel, Jaden, and Maya standing in the same park where the twins ran across the grass. They are not smiling. Their faces hold something quieter than happiness. They have survived. And sometimes survival is the only victory that matters. But here is what I keep asking myself, and now I am asking you. If you were David, would you have believed your mother? If you were Rachel, would you have found the strength to come back? And if you were those twins, would you ever be able to forgive the grandmother who stole your mother from you? Those are the questions that do not have easy answers. Maybe that is why this story stays with you long after you have heard it. Thank you for watching. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next story. And tell us in the comments, what would you do if you find yourself in such situation? Because your answer might be the most important thing you ever write.